Welcome everyone. This video is going to highlight some alternative trays to using sand, which is what we would typically use in a traditional sand tray setup. So we're going to go through several other trays that you could consider having in your playroom or having available to kids to choose from besides sand. And I'm really excited because through the years I have discovered many different products, and some of them have worked really well and some of them have not worked so great. So I'm going to share with you today 8 different types of trays that you could set up besides sand that have worked really well for me through the years with the kids that I work with. Obviously, we are focusing in on children with developmental disorders. So autism and related conditions, sensory processing issues, these types of things that are happening. And with some of these kids that we work with, they do not respond very well to a traditional sand tray setup, meaning sand in the tray, for various reasons. Some kids might have a sensory reaction to the sand. They do not like touching it. They do not like the way that maybe some sand residue remains on their fingers or their hands, and thus they do not want to do anything with the sand in the sand tray. Some kids may have an allergy. I've worked with several kids who have an allergy to some of the product that is put into commercial sand. And then, of course, with this population, we may just have a child who, for whatever reason, is just not drawn to the sand, is not interested in it, doesn't want to have anything to do with it. So for one or more of these reasons, we may not be able to use our traditional sand tray to work with kids. The reason that I present some alternatives is because I'm a big believer in all kinds of sand work with kids. Traditional sand tray therapy processes, regulation and sensory processes, but being able to use sand trays and sand I should say, I found it to be so beneficial. And I think if you have a child that doesn't respond to sand, you've got other options of still getting a lot of the benefits of what you would typically get out of this type of therapy without having to pass on it because the child doesn't like the sand or can't play or use the sand. So we're going to look at some other types of trays you can set up. Some of my favorites, really. You probably will think of other ideas, or maybe you're already using other ideas, but I'm going to show you 8 of my favorites and talk about them a little bit. So let's jump in here and let's get started with our first one, which I have open here. This is actually Jasmine Rice, and it's really nice. It's one of my favorite alternative trays to use besides sand because it's very soft, has a very nice feel to it, and it's also pretty good about being able to put miniatures in it and have them stand up or whatnot. And I will say that rice is not rice. What you really want to look for, I think, is the Jasmine Rice. It is extra soft. It's got a very nice feel to it. It's actually very nice even from a sensory standpoint for kids to play in and put their fingers in and put their hands in. This makes a great alternative to sand. So make sure if you are considering a rice tray, you really are trying to find Jasmine Rice, because I think that's the kind you're going to respond to the best and you're going to like the best. I actually know a therapist in Kentucky who has just a Jasmine Rice tray. She doesn't even use sand any longer in her traditional sand tray setup. She does just a Jasmine Rice tray. And I don't blame her. It's really nice. I kind of don't want to stop playing in it right now, even when I start touching it, It's got a really good texture to it, and it's actually a very soothing experience, much like a fine sand can be soothing for neurotypical individuals. So our first tray, hopefully you can kind of get a look at it. I know it's hard to get the full experience of what the tray is like through a video, but trust me, it's a good one, and that is Jasmine Rice. So let's take a look at a second one here. This has been one of my most popular throughout the years. I think it was actually one of the first alternatives to sand that I started using, and it's called KayKob, and that's with K's. KayKob, I believe is how it's spelled. And KayKob is ground up corn kernels. Probably again hard to see, but it's ground up corn kernels, and usually it is used as bed liner in pet cages, so you would probably find this in like a pet store. But it is great as a tactile alternative. When you grab it, there is sort of a tough texture. It kind of feels like maybe little bitty rocks, but some kids really like the feel of that. It's also very light. So if you had to have a tray that you would carry with you, maybe in the back of your car to take in home, KayKob is a good option because it just doesn't weigh much. And so you could have a big tray and it would be very easy to carry around. So some kids prefer this tactile experience. It's nice to have something that isn't soft because some kids don't like soft, and so they want to work in something that has a little bit harder texture to it, and KayKob is definitely like that. Okay, one of my new favorites that I discovered more recently, but I really like and have started using a lot, is Lentils. These are a lot like the Jasmine Rice for me. They're very soft. It feels actually very good to rub your fingers and hands through them. And they actually feel like really soft little pieces of maybe rubber when you're playing with a whole tray of them. And these are lentils. And actually, the nice thing about the type of lentils that I get is these come from the Dollar Tree. So they're only $1 a package, and they're very soft. And they're also good for putting miniatures in, because miniatures will tend to stay up in a lentil tray because it's kind of dense. But a great tactile experience, definitely a soft one, and really nice as an alternative to sand. I think Jasmine Rice and lentils are probably two of our better alternatives to sand that maybe mimic sand the most, yet they're not sand. So a child who maybe doesn't like sand might enjoy the lentil tray or the Jasmine Rice tray. We also have kind of a classic option, and that is pasta. So a pasta tray could certainly be created, and some kids might like this. Again, texture-wise, it's going to feel hard, kind of like the KayKob, and some kids do prefer that. And of course, if you're going to do a pasta tray, you've got an unlimited number of options for you of what type of pasta you use. I have just some very little kind of traditional pasta noodles in here mixed with some a little bit longer pasta noodles. Just kind of mix them together. One thing about the pasta tray that's kind of fun is it has a very distinct sound. So if you start playing in it, it's not just a tactile experience, there's also a sound auditory experience. So if you're trying to see, as I'm playing in there, we're definitely getting that noise that we might not get in sand or some of the other trays I've shown you already. And some kids might really like that. That may be something that they respond to or they're drawn to, and so they might enjoy having this type of tray to play in. Okay, and actually this tray is really cool because a client introduced this tray to me. I did not really have this product on my radar so much, but a client brought me in this tray, him and his mom, and said, we want you to use this as a tray also because I really like it. And it is grass seed, which is actually really cool. It is a tub of just basic regular grass seed. And it's really interesting because it's very, very soft. It's very fine. And so again, this would be similar to Jasmine Rice and Lentils in terms of being soft and smooth. So a little more similar maybe to sand. And of course, it's grass seed, so there's a smell. And there's definitely an odor. It smells like grass seed. And if that is something that the child likes, if they like that scent, then they may really prefer working in this type of tray. And it has become a fairly popular tray of mine that kids have chosen. I think because it is so soft, and also some kids really like that grass smell. I think they find it relaxing. It's sort of bringing nature into the sand tray inside of our room, and so that's soothing for some kids and they enjoy selecting this type of tray. Okay, so far we have picked a few food alternatives for trays. I think everything has been except for the grass, and actually I want to show you something similar to the grass, because before I learned of a grass seed sand tray, I had actually started using what I just called a nature tray. I thought this was a really cool idea. And so very simple to put together. I would just go outside and get leaves or little acorns or all kinds of things that maybe I could grind up a little bit and make a little smaller, and then put them in a tray that kids could play in or manipulate. Very nice way of getting the outside inside. In nature, I think this tray, much like the grass seed tray, bringing nature in is sometimes very soothing and appealing to kids, very regulating. And so I think they like these types of trays for that reason. One of the things that you would have as a caution for the grass seed tray, for a nature tray, is if the child had an allergy to something outdoors. We would want to know that, and we would want to make sure that one of our nature trays didn't trigger that allergy. Also, this nature tray that I put together with mainly leaves and seeds and maybe little acorns doesn't necessarily hold miniatures up in it very well. You're not going to get that benefit. So the miniature would probably need to stand on its own, or it would fall over in this type of tray because it's not very dense in terms of holding miniatures. But a nice alternative to offer kids who might really like this and really want to work in this type of tray. So far we have done just food and then a couple of nature trays, and that is mainly what I used for many years. And then I got a little girl who came onto my caseload who not only had an allergy to sand, commercial sand products, she could not use it or she would break out in hives. She also had allergies to all of the food trays and didn't really like the nature trays. So that was pretty much all the trays that I had. Yet she was really drawn to the miniatures. She wanted to play with the miniatures, and actually she wanted at times to play in the trays, but her mom of course would not allow it because of her allergy issues. So I really wanted to do something for her. I wanted to create something that she could use, that she could play in. And so I came up with this idea of how about a confetti tray? Just a tray made up of little pieces of confetti. And I ran this by her mom, who was like, that's a great idea. And so I created a confetti tray for this client. And hopefully you can see what this looks like on the camera. It's lots of little pieces of confetti, and then I just mixed some beads in there with the confetti. So it's really, really visually stunning when you create a confetti tray. It's very bright, it sparkles, there's a lot of movement in the tray as you manipulate in the tray. And of course, a child who would have an allergy to maybe food products or sand could easily play in the confetti tray. And interestingly enough, since I created this type of tray and I introduced it into our Sandtray room, it actually has become one of the more popular trays, even with neurotypical kids. I think because it is so visually appealing, and it's actually very soft. When you play in the confetti tray, it feels very soft and very soothing. And I think even just watching it is really fun. So a lot of kids have actually enjoyed this tray. And so this has been a nice one that I've added into the Sandtray room. And I think almost all these this confetti and these beads I did buy at Dollar Tree, which is great because you can get the materials pretty cheap and create this tray pretty inexpensively. And then the last tray I want to show you is also good if you have kids who have allergy issues or some kind of sensory sensitivity to maybe the food trays or sand, because it's not food and it's not nature, and it is just good old-fashioned glass beads. And if nothing else works, you can create a glass bead tray. What's really nice about these is you can make them certain colors, because we all know there's lots of colors of glass beads. You can make them clear, where it's all clear, or you can make them blue or green, or you can mix colors if you thought that that would be beneficial. And the glass bead tray will certainly hold up miniatures. It's very dense. One of the negatives would probably be that it's heavy. So this is probably the heaviest tray that I have, is the glass bead tray. And so this wouldn't be a very good portable tray. I think it'd be pretty heavy to be lifting and carrying around places. But one of the nice things about it is it's similar to what we had with the pasta tray, that there is a lot of sound that comes along with the glass bead tray. So as you're working in it, you're going to get that sound auditory experience along with whatever else you're doing in the tray. And again, some kids like that. They prefer that. They want to hear that sound. And so they would like to work in this type of tray. So obviously, I have a lot of trays in our Sandtray room. I don't necessarily have 8 in there all the time. Actually, I think I do have around 6. So I have most of these types. I also have different types of sand. So I have kinetic sand and I have moon sand, besides just regular traditional soft sort of off beige sand. So there are a lot of trays that kids can come in and choose from, and that takes some space. So you have to think about that when you're going to create other trays, is you're going to need the space for these trays to be somewhere. But there are a few trays that I also alternate in and out because I can't fit them all in there at once. And so I will just bring some in at different times and switch them out and see if kids respond to them. Basically try to keep maybe some of the most popular ones in there. But you know, it varies per child. Some kids prefer one type of tray over the other, and they always know that they can pick the tray that they want to work in and that they want to use. And I really like having that option for them. I also just like having the option for everybody. So whoever you are, whatever the issues may be, if it's sensory, if it's allergy, if it's preference, there's a tray that you can work in and work out of in a traditional Sandtray therapy way, or just for a regulation or sensory tool. Excuse me. So I think this gives you some idea of how you could begin to think about maybe there's some other material I can use besides sand, or offer that in my playroom or my Sandtray room for kids who are not going to respond to sand. And again, you may think of some other ideas. I know that people have told me they use chickpeas. I've heard somebody used rubber mulch. So there are different ideas that I'm sure you could run across and think this might make a good tray to have as an option besides sand. And so if you have any questions about this, feel free to contact us, and hopefully this will just add another level to your Sandtray work, and especially for working with kids with developmental disorders, and give you some additional tools. So please like our YouTube channel. We always appreciate that. And feel free to make comments on our YouTube page if you have some Sandtray alternative ideas that you use and that worked really well. It would be great to have even more ideas to pull from. So thank you for watching, and have fun in your play therapy work, and make sure that you follow us and stay connected so you can check out all the other videos that we might have to offer. Thanks. Bye.